hump day. Wednesday. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Wednesday's edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. I am your host, James Murphy, aka Murph, and hopefully you survived the thunderstorm, the rainstorm, or whatever we were having, if you did receive such here in the New England area. If you're outside of the New England area and you received no rainstorm and just sunshines, well, congratulations, I envy you. In this episode, we do have a lot of stuff to go over, a lot of Red Sox to discuss. I also want to touch upon the Wander Franco debut, that he had a fantastic performance last night in his first ever Major League Baseball game for the Tampa Bay Rays, and just kind of break that game down because he is baseball's number one prospect. So I just kind of want to talk about that, what we saw from him, and maybe what we can see potentially out of Jarren Duran, the Red Sox number one prospect, if he and when he gets the call up, hopefully sooner than later. I want to break down last night's game as well, because there are a couple things that I want to point out in this game, and I really think it is very noteworthy for us to consider as the season keeps progressing and the season matures as we get further and further into the summer. Additionally, we have to talk Boston Bruins, obviously. Now, I know there's not much going on right now for the black and gold. However, the expansion draft is just under a month away. I had the exact, I think July 31st or 21st, excuse me. Yes, it is July 21st, 2021. That is when the Seattle Kraken will be picking players from all the teams in the NHL, with the exception of the Vegas Golden Knights. So 30 out of 31 teams will be exposed to Seattle for the expansion draft. The reason why Vegas Golden Knights are not in this expansion draft and that they are exempt from this year's draft is because they are a recently new team. They're only 4 years old or whatever it may be. So to keep the balance of fairness fair, right, they will be exempt from this draft, although they're one of the best teams in the National Hockey League for just being 4 years old. However, we'll get more into that later on in this episode. Before we go any further, I do have some upsetting, sad news in regards to the podcast, in regards to Murph's Boston Sports Talk. And this pains me to say this, is that effective immediately, Murph's Boston Sports Talk will only be airing on Mondays and Fridays. So today is the last hump day, Wednesday's edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk for a couple reasons. One, it's just the Red Sox right now going on. The Patriots minicamp is over. Preseason will be on the horizon soon. Celtics season just ended. Not much is going on there. And the Bruins, their season is also over, and there's not much going on there right now, with the exception of the expansion draft, free agency, and such. So there are conversations to be had. However, is it enough to warrant 3 episodes a week? Now, I don't want to drag discussions and conversation and drag topics revolving around Boston sports, or only have short episodes like 30, 35-minute episodes. So I kind of want to put more quality into my quantity. So I'd rather have a higher quality episode on Mondays and Fridays than to have a lesser quality episode and have more of a quantity on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I'm hoping that this schedule change is for the better. I strongly believe that it will be. Having a conversation on Monday, recapping the weekend, such as Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then having Friday's episode where I can recap stuff, topics, whatever, from the duration of the week from Monday all the way to Thursday. So I'm really excited for it. I really think it's going to be for the better. And not just because of the whole, it's a lull right now in not just Boston sports, but just in sports in general, because baseball is the only thing going on. But just because, I am starting to push forward at a very fast pace with Murph's Card Town and Sports Shop, and I do not want to take away from the podcast. However, I also need to put my mind to the card shop as well. So in order to do both of them at the highest of levels that I can, the podcast giving you that higher quality, and also getting the card shop up and running and preparing for when I open the doors, I also need to keep that in mind as well. So for those two reasons, that is why effective immediately, Murph's Boston Sports Talk will only be airing on Mondays and Fridays every single week. So expect 2 episodes every single week, and I really hope that this new update to the podcast is taken favorably. I've been in some deep conversations with not just Kim, but some other podcasters as well, and fans, listeners, just to get their opinion on it, because if they were really dead against it, I would have stuck with Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but they agree with me with my ideation that Monday and Friday would be best for all scenarios. So thank you so much for downloading, listening, and enjoying every single Wednesday's edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. This is unfortunately the last one, but we are going to go out with an absolute banger. So with that out of the way, let's dive into the Red Sox, because after their win last night 9-5 in extra innings, it took them 11 innings to win. I still have my concern with this team. Now, obviously, this game is a massive game for them. It's also a series, I should say, that this series is massive for the Red Sox, but it's also massive for the Tampa Bay Rays as well, because going into this series, half a game separated them. Red Sox were on top. Rays were in second place by half a game. So obviously the win last night puts the Red Sox up 1.5 games on the Rays. However, 9-5 seems like a nice win, right? Extra innings, it is what it is. But you're winning by 4 runs in extra innings. So obviously you exploded in one inning, that being the 11th inning. But how about the rest of the game? Besides the 11th inning where they scored 4 runs, they scored 5 runs throughout the entirety of the game, the first 10 innings. And all 5 of those runs were scored in the 3rd inning. All 5 of their runs that they did not score in the 11th inning were all scored in the 3rd inning. Now that's fantastic that they were able to explode in an inning, get 5 runs, regain the lead. However, if you look at a bigger picture than that, you can see that through 9 innings of this game, they were scoreless. They had the 1 5-run 3rd inning, and they had the 1 4-run 11th inning. So for 9 out of the 11 innings, they were scoreless. That is concerning to me. That is very concerning. You hit 11 hits. That was like a tongue twister for me for a second. You get 11 hits in 11 innings, so 1 hit per inning. I mean, I guess you'll take it, right? You'd rather have 11 hits in 11 innings than have 5 hits in 11 innings, right? But I just don't think that this win is all that impressive. I think what's more impressive is the pitching. And Eduardo Rodriguez went 6 innings, gave up 3 earned, 2 of them unearned, and then the bullpen was nails. The bullpen was absolute nails. Josh Taylor, inning, nothing. Adam Ottavino, inning, nothing. Matt Barnes, inning, nothing. Sawamura, 2/3 of an inning, nothing. And Darwinzon Hernandez, inning and a third with nothing given up. I'm so iffy on the bullpen. They have a great couple of games, and then they suck for a couple of games. And I get it's a long season. It's going to happen. Every bullpen goes through these stretches. But I think this is very impressive, especially against the Rays team, who's been very, very good just about all season long. And to shut them out for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 innings. That's really impressive. That's really, really impressive. But like I said, is this something sustainable? And I don't think so. Especially with Major League Baseball cracking down on the whole foreign sticky substance with pitchers. A lot of fingers are pointing to the Red Sox and their pitching staff of being culprits of this, which I will not go into. But it's like I mentioned a couple episodes ago. I love the timing that Major League Baseball is cracking down on this in the middle of the season, because you will have 2 large, almost even sample sizes where you can see the pitching performance and the hitting performance based off of the league allowing this sticky substance and foreign substance, and then you'll have another half where the league does not allow it. I know a lot of people are enraged that they should have done this in the beginning of the season, or they should have waited to the off season to do this. And I think there's a time and a place for that, yes. But when the integrity of the league is at stake, then I think this is something that needs to be taken action right away. I don't think that this is something that should be waited for the offseason to be dealt with, because by then, a full season of this foreign sticky substance being allowed is a huge blow to the integrity of this game, because you know that there's going to be people in the offseason or throughout the season in general saying, oh, well, he's only good because he's using spider tack, or that team only won and beat that team because they had sticky stuff on their hands. Just eliminate that conversation and just ban it. But I'm going on an absolute tangent here. I need to get back to the Red Sox. Anyways, the Red Sox. Danny Santana leading off 1 for 4. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? Alex Verdugo 1 for 3. He had 2 walks. Martinez 1 for 5. Connor Wong. Yes, Connor Wong pinch ran for JD Martinez in extra innings. I believe it was the top of the, I'm not exactly sure, the 10th or the 11th. He pinch ran for him in extra innings, getting his major league debut, replacing the injured catcher Kevin Plawecki on the active roster. So we finally get to see Connor Wong. Hopefully he will get a start relatively soon, just so we can see what he has. I would assume he'll get a start against the Braves, or maybe one of those, like the first game against the Yankees, because obviously you need to rotate your catches every now and then, and you want to see what you have in this guy. He was one of the pieces that you received in return from the Mookie Betts trade. Alex Verdugo has been working out very, very well for us so far. Jeter Downs has a lot of potential at shortstop and at second base, more likely to be a second baseman when he's finally up here because of Bogarts, and a lot of great praise from him down in Portland. However, Connor Wong, he's 23, I believe, 22, 23, so he's a little older, and he's a catcher, so we got to see what he has behind the plate, because Christian Vazquez's contract, I believe, is up at the end of this year, and I do think that the Red Sox will re-sign him. But having a nice young backup catcher in Connor Wong, especially one who's been claimed to have been able to hit the ball very well, would be a great, great compliment to Christian Vazquez, who's more of a defensive-oriented catcher, although the past couple years his hitting has significantly improved. So it's nice to finally see Connor Wong up here on the big club, and I look forward to his first career start. Xander Bogaerts, 3 for 5, killing it, of course. Rafael Devers, 2 for 4, killing it as well. Hunter Renfroe, 2 for 5. Vasquez, 0 for 5. Enrique Hernandez, 1 for 3. And Bobby Dahlbeck, 0 for 5. I still believe that we should just ride the wave with Bobby Dahlbeck. Just keep getting him plate appearances, keep getting him experience, and keep putting him in the lineup. I think eventually he will come and blossom. However, you just kind of have to wait the storm out. You know that the power is there. You know the pop is there. And his defense has been relatively good over at first base. He's a third baseman by trait. However, we are training him to be a first baseman. And I think his defense has been very well. And obviously, I'm not pointing fingers at him saying that he needs to improve or he shouldn't be a first baseman, because he doesn't warrant that. So I do think the hitting will come if he gets injured. Obviously, you bring him down to AAA, let him rehab a little bit, and maybe keep him down there on an extended stay while you have Michael Chavis up here or something to replace him. However, who else are you going to put there? I mean, seriously, you do have Michael Chavis, who you could put there. Marwin Gonzalez, Danny Santana. I mean, come on. Let's be seriously, who are we going to put there? So might as well just keep him there, ride the wave, and hope for the best and that he officially develops. But, now that we're into almost 3 full months of the season, the fact that he's still very, very, his performance is very, very lackluster thus far is concerning. 214 batting average is tough to look at, but 9 home runs, 32 RBIs. I think that itself right there is really solid. But like I said, that 214 average, would like to see it. I would be content with 40 points higher. I really would be. I would be content with 40 points higher if we could get it up there. But I do want to come back and circle back to the point that the Red Sox offense is inconsistent. It really is. Danny Santana, again, another bad performance. Bobby Dahlbeck, who I just talked about, bad performance. Enrique Hernandez going 1 for 3. Sure, but relatively he's been inconsistent. Vasquez 0 for 5. Maybe Connor Wong. Who knows? Who knows? Let's see. What else? JD Martinez 1 for 5. You're not taking him out. We need another left-handed bat in this lineup. And I'm not going to sit here and preach to you again to bring up Jarren Duran. But speaking of Jarren Duran, I do want to talk about Wander Franco and the Rays' top prospect and Major League Baseball's top prospect, who Wander Franco is a shortstop, got the start at third base tonight, or last night I should say. Went 2 for 4 with 2 runs, a walk, a home run, and 3 RBIs. Absolute stud performance. Anybody and everybody with this rookie card, that value just skyrocketed. So make sure it is graded, or make sure you hold on to it, because him being proclaimed as a fantastic hitter for his age is only going to go up. His defense is smooth. He's a switch hitter. Very versatile kid, obviously being shortstop, playing third base. I liked what I saw from him. He took it down. I don't know. I think it was a changeup down and in, and Wander Franco just, kind of hooked it to the left field foul pole. Just kind of, it wasn't, obviously didn't hit it, but it just snuck right in there off of Eduardo Rodriguez in the 5th inning to tie the game at that point. The kid's good. If he has a lot of good success here at the big leagues over the series and then the next couple weeks for the Rays, he will never go back down. He will not go back down to the minors, let me tell you that. And I think that does give you some promise for Jarren Duran. Obviously, they're completely different players. They're ranked completely different. Obviously, Franco being number 1, and I'm not exactly sure where Jarren Duran is in all of baseball. However, if you see the Rays' top prospect balling out, then why don't you give your top prospect a chance, especially when you could use it, especially where Danny Santana is underperforming, Enrique Hernandez is relatively underperforming, and I have the stats that I talked about last time where, Hunter Renfroe, Michael Chavis, JD Martinez, Kike Hernandez, Danny Santana, Marwin Gonzalez, Alex Verdugo, and Franchi Cordero, who have all played the outfield for the Red Sox, are hitting a combined 232, 232 combined between those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 outfielders that the Red Sox have seen this year. I don't think it's, out of the realm of possibility for Jarren Duran to potentially be up before September. I certainly would love him to be up before September, but let's just think about it. Let's just sit and think about it. Unless the Red Sox sustain an injury right now, maybe like a long-term injury to one of their outfielders, I don't see the Red Sox wasting an option on him just to come up for like a couple weeks or so. I mean, I think that they should, because you give the kid a week or two to play up here, see what he can do. Then he can go into the minor leagues, make those adjustments for the next time he gets called up, like what I talked about, like what Cordero's probably doing right now. I don't know. I'd rather them go out and get a veteran left-handed bat in the lineup who can hit for good contact, like a Michael Brantley kind of player. But I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think that they're going to do it. And they could not do it because they want to wait for Jarren Duran to more fully develop, and then they can call him up for one time, and that's it. We're just going to have to wait and see with the Red Sox and Jarren Duran, because their offense, their lineup, desperately needs a left-handed bat, a kid with some pop, and someone who is, I guess, a 5-tool player. I mean, he has all the makings to be a 5-tool player. The contact is there. The power is there. The speed is obviously there. The glove is growing. I mean, he's a second baseman, but he is working in the outfield. So the glove will come, hopefully. And the arm, from what I've heard, is pretty solid. So 3.5-tool player, maybe? We'll just have to wait and see. But I don't know. I think the Red Sox should call him up the next opportunity that they can for an injury to the outfield. I really do. Or just an injury in general, because you do have the versatile players on your team: Enrique Hernandez, Marwin Gonzalez, Danny Santana. So you do have some flexibility there. Say, knock on wood, Xander Bogaerts gets injured, right? You can put Hernandez, you can put Gonzalez over at shortstop, and then that spot, what would be taken in the outfield, can go to Jarren Duran. Makes sense? Oh, Red Sox, though. Big series against the Rays. It was nice for them to win the first one, obviously. Second one, 7-10 tonight at the Tropicana Field. Game 3 tomorrow, 7-10 start at Tropicana Field, of course. And then a big 3-game weekend series against the Yankees as the Yankees come into town for the first time this year, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I said on Monday, Red Sox hopefully can win 5 out of 6 games this week and weekend, being against, division rivals who are breathing down their neck in the division standings, specifically the Rays. And you do not want to allow or give the Yankees any momentum at all, not just against you, but in general, because with that lineup, they can get hot. And you don't want them to get hot because you want to shovel them down into the dirt and push them into the pit of misery. But with that darkness out of the way and my Red Sox segment wrapping up, I did preface this. Boston Bruins, not a lot going on right now, but they do have a big decisions to make, or several big decisions to make, right? Depending on the option that they go with. And when I refer to decisions and options, I mean the expansion draft. The 2021 NHL expansion draft is July 21st, and the Seattle Kraken will be taking a player from every single team in the league with the exception of the Vegas Golden Knights. And I talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the episode, and that is because they are a new team in the league. They are a relatively new team. They're still growing their foundation and their base. However, I think it's a little unfair that the Vegas Golden Knights are exempt from the draft because they are so good. They are one of the best teams in the National Hockey League, and they have been since their inception back in 2017. Let's just look. Let's see. This year, they finished second with 82 points in their division. Last year, they finished first with 86 points in their division. The year before that, in 2018-2019, I hate when it switches. They finished third with 93 points. Yeah, the Calgary Flames had 107 and the Sharks had 101. And their inaugural season in 2017-2018, the Vegas Golden Knights had 109 points. And in that season, we saw them breaking several records across sports for an expansion team. Baseball, basketball, hockey, and football expansion records were all broken. Team to win the most games / points, to go win a playoff series, to go the furthest in the playoffs. They made it to the Stanley Cup Finals in year one, and they lost. Who did they lose to? 2018 Stanley. I forget who they won. Who they lose? Was it the Capitals? It was the Capitals. That's right, because Ovechkin got his first ring or his first championship, whatever, that year. So they're a good team. They're a very good team, and this year they're in the semifinals the semifinals of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs this year, and they're currently down 3-2 against the Montreal Canadiens. So I don't know, but I mean, making the playoffs basically every single year that they've been in the league these first 4 years, that's really solid. But this is very unprecedented because oftentimes expansion teams don't have this kind of performance, this kind of success early on in their, in their life, right? I talked about this episodes ago, weeks ago, months ago, about Major League Baseball needing expansion teams, and that they wouldn't suck right away. And I looked up all the expansion teams that we've seen in comparison to teams that did not expand before the expansion era in 1961, and that all the teams that have expanded from 1961 on, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was relatively close. The teams that have expanded past 1961, which is known as the expansion era, have a very, very similar winning percentage to a handful of teams that have not been a part of the expansion era. It was 4 or 5 or so teams that have been in baseball for years and decades and almost, basically 100 years at this point. Whatever those teams' winning percentage is less or equal or around the combined winning percentage of all the teams that have expanded in the expansion era for Major League Baseball. And the Vegas Golden Knights, going back to hockey, broke all of that. I only covered baseball, but there's obviously basketball, hockey beforehand, and obviously football as well to be discussed. But just constantly, you were seeing Vegas Golden Knights on track for this, breaking this record, having the most wins, having the most points, going this far in the playoff, winning a playoff game, winning a playoff series, going this far in the playoffs, and then eventually losing in the Stanley Cup Finals. But they're fantastic teams for just a team that's been in the league for 4 years. So they've made the playoffs every single year, and I think it's a little unfair that they are exempt from this draft. But you know what? It is what it is, and a team that is not exempt from the draft is the Boston Bruins. And obviously our beloved Boston Bruins have tough, difficult decisions to be made this year, or I guess in the coming weeks. I would hope that these decisions are already being made as we speak so they can prepare in terms of free agency, potential trades, and whatnot. And every team, obviously with the exception of the Vegas Golden Knights, every team in hockey has 2 options for protecting their players for the expansion draft. Yes, teams can protect their players, and every team has these 2 options. They can protect 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and a goaltender, or they can choose to protect 8 skaters, so a combination of forwards and defensemen, and a goaltender. So depending on the route that a team wants to go with, in total they can protect 10 skaters if they choose the first option, which is 7 forwards and 3 defensemen, and then obviously a goaltender, or they can only protect 8 skaters between forwards and defensemen and a goaltender. A goaltender is a staple. You have to protect a goaltender. So yes, every team has those 2 options. Option 1 is 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and a goaltender. Option 2 is 8 skaters consisting of forwards and defensemen and a goaltender. There are some exceptions for players. And those exceptions are obviously no movement clauses. So when signing contracts, players may want a no movement clause into that contract, which I will go into for some Bruins players. And for players that have no movement clauses, have to be protected. So a team, say the Bruins, and I'll just use Bergeron for an example because he has a no movement clause. The Bruins absolutely have to protect Patrice Bergeron, even if they didn't want to, because he has a no movement clause in his contract. If he didn't have that clause, then the Bruins could choose not to protect him and expose him to the expansion draft, or they could still just protect him just like an ordinary player. But since he has that no movement clause in his contract, he cannot be part of the expansion draft, forcing the Bruins to protect him whether or not they want to. Obviously, it's Patrice Bergeron, and they're going to want to. Also, players within the first year or 2 of their NHL career are not required to be protected. They're too young. They don't have enough experience. It is just unfair because you may have an up-and-coming prospect, got a good quick little look at him. It's just unfair to protect someone like that. And also, a player like that doesn't help bode well in terms of tipping the balance of fairness for the Seattle Kraken. So, for example, Jeremy Swayman made his debut this past year. He does not have to be protected, although the Bruins need to protect a goalie, and it probably would be Jeremy Swayman. They are not obligated to, or they do not have to protect him because he has less than or equal to 1 or 2 years in the NHL. So he is exempt from the list. And the last player exemption are unrestricted free agents. Teams that have unrestricted free agents do not have to protect those players. So for the Bruins example, David Krejci, Taylor Hall, Sean Kuraly, they do not have to be on the Bruins protected list because they are impending unrestricted free agents. So for example, the Kraken go select Taylor Hall. They don't come to an agreement on a contract, and then Taylor Hall goes signs elsewhere. Well, now the Seattle Kraken just wasted that pick on Taylor Hall where they could have selected someone else from the Bruins roster. It just doesn't make sense. So a restricted free agent can be picked from any team by the Kraken, or a player that has existing years left on their contract would also be able to be picked. All right. With that out of the way, I have prepared 2 separate lists for the Bruins to endeavor if they were to choose one option or the other. So the first option I'm going to go over is the pure 8-skater list. Obviously the goalie. In this case, the goalie is going to be Dan Vladar. In both lists, he's going to be protected. Dan Vladar. I really think the Bruins like him. He has a lot of potential. If it wasn't for Swayman, he would probably be the starter. However, you have Swayman, you have Vladar. 2 young goalies would go hand in hand. Obviously, Yaroslav Halak and both Tuukka Rask are unrestricted free agents, so might as well just protect Daniel Vladar. 8 skaters for the Bruins. Here it goes. Patrice Bergeron, forward. David Pastrnak, forward. Brad Marchand, forward. Charlie Coyle, forward. Charlie McAvoy, defenseman. Matt Grzelcyk, defenseman. Brandon Carlo, defenseman. Connor Clifton, defenseman. Now, the reason why I chose Bergeron, Pasta, Marchand, and Coyle is because I was forced. Remember what I was talking about, the no movement clause? Well, all 4 of those players have a no movement clause. So, by default, the Bruins will have to protect Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand, and Charlie Coyle, no matter which option they choose. So, in this list, I have Bergeron, Pasta, Marchand, Coyle, McAvoy, Grzelcyk, Carlo, and Clifton. Those are the players that I have the Bruins protecting. Now, you could be wondering, why did I pick Connor Clifton? Well, if the Bruins were to pick the 8 skaters and goalie option, the only reason why they would do that is to protect a 4th defenseman. Because in the second option of 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and a goalie, they only need to protect, well, they only can protect 3 defensemen. However, if they were to pick the 8-skater option, they would be able to choose at least 4 defensemen if they wish. And looking at the defenseman list, Charlie Coyle, Matt Grzelcyk, and Brandon Carlo are going to be shoo-ins. They're going to be shoo-ins. So the only other options are Connor Clifton, Jeremy Lauzon, because everyone else is unrestricted. Jacob Zaboral are also options. And Steven Kampfer, Kevin Miller, Jared Tenorti, and Mike Riley are all unrestricted free agents, so they are obviously exempt. You could replace Connor Clifton with Jeremy Lauzon if you wish. And if the Bruins do not select the 8 skaters and goalie option, exposing both Jeremy Lauzon and Connor Clifton, I could very, very, very much see the Seattle Kraken taking one of those 2 guys. I would probably put my money on Jeremy Lauzon, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Connor Clifton. They both bring good things to the table. Jeremy Lauzon is a little bit younger. He has less playing time, or I should say less experience in this league. So that may be why Connor Clifton's more attractive. However, Jeremy Lauzon was more of a starter and a staple in the Bruins lineup than Connor Clifton was this past year. It could be either or. I just put Connor Clifton down just to put somebody down, but it could be either or, Clifton or Lauzon, if the Bruins choose the 8-skater option. If the Bruins were to choose the 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and a goalie option, which I believe is the path that they will go, this is who I believe they will protect. Obviously, Daniel Vladar, Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand, and Charlie Coyle are the 4 players that they have to protect, but due to the new no movement clause. I believe that they will additionally protect, for the last 3 forwards, Craig Smith, Trent Frederick, Jake DeBrusk. Now, before I go into the defensemen, actually, I'll just do it now because it's quite obvious. Charlie McAvoy, Matt Grzelcyk, Brandon Carlo. Simple, right? Why did I pick Trent Frederick, Craig Smith, and Jake DeBrusk? Well, let me just start with Craig Smith. He had a fantastic season this past year, being a solid, actually a really good right winger for David Krejci on that line. He has 2 more years left on his contract. He's only 31 years old. And regardless what you do with David Krejci this offseason, having Craig Smith on that right side, just solidifying that position, which has eluded you for almost a decade now, is a nice safety net because you're not going to have to worry about it again. Why did I pick Trent Frederick? Well, this is a player that is young, up and coming. He has a lot of potential, and I think he hasn't reached that potential yet. This would be a great player for the Seattle Kraken to salivate on because Trent Frederick could be a part of their young core moving forward as well, because obviously they're going to be picking a lot of veterans, a lot of maybe unproven guys. However, they're going to want to try to take some younger players as well to kind of build a core up for a couple years down the road, because I don't know how much they're anticipating on being competitive or good next year in the 21-22 season. I mean, what the Vegas Golden Knights did is very unprecedented and unheard of. But they cannot expect that in year one. So having a core of Trent Frederick and other young stars that they pick and choose from other teams would be highly beneficial for them to breed and groom for next year, the year after, and years ahead as the Seattle Kraken's team, philosophy, chemistry, and existence just grows and matures. So I think that's why that the Bruins should protect Trent Frederick, because for all those reasons that I mentioned why the Seattle Kraken would love him and why the Bruins should protect him, I think he'd be a great piece and great fit here in Boston moving forward, being a part of that young core, that young group, that next generation of Bruins stars moving forward. He's a center, left winger as well, and I think maybe him on the third line would be very nice come next year. Obviously, depending what you do with Krejci, Hall, Ritchie, Kashe, it's going to be very interesting to see what they do, but I think Trent Frederick should be a staple in the Bruins lineup next year because his age, he's going to be relatively inexpensive, and also the potential that he has. Why did I choose to protect Jake DeBrusk here? Well, he had a very nice season this year. He's still young. He's only 24. He has one more year left on his contract. And I really think that Jake DeBrusk just hit a huge wall when it came to the playoffs. He scored 2 goals in the first 2 games of the Capitals series, I believe, if I remember correctly. And he has really, I think he scored like 30 goals one year, if I remember correctly. So the talent is there, the potential is there, and we've seen it. We've seen it in little bits, little chunks here and there. We've seen it. Goals. He scored 16 in his first season, 27 last year, or 2 years ago, 19 the year before that, and 5 this past year. So he has the potential to be a 30-goal scorer, scoring 27 just 3 years ago. And if the Bruins do want to move on from him, then I feel like they would rather trade him. And the only way that they can do that is if they protect him and then trade him. So instead of getting nothing for him, might as well protect him and then try to trade him for either another player, players, draft picks, combination, whatever it may be. Now, obviously, the Bruins just want to get rid of him. That's fine. But who else could we see the Bruins protect in his spot as well, which I would disagree with, but a conversation is to be had nonetheless. Players like Nick Ritchie, Andre Kasha, Trent Frederick, which I just mentioned, if they choose not to protect him. You could also look at a player like Carson Kuhlman, Curtis Lazar, Chris Wagner. These are players that are, going to be exposed to the Seattle Kraken in the expansion draft. So if not Jake DeBrusk, because they don't value a potential trade of him as much as they value protecting somebody, then I strongly believe that they would... I hate saying this, but it would probably be Nick Ritchie that they would protect. He had a very good year this past year. He kind of stunk in the playoffs. He was slow and he didn't really do much in the Islanders series. He was supposed to be that, rough guy, that tough guy, and he kind of was, don't get me wrong. And he was that guy in the Capitals series as well. But is that really worth protecting someone over? I mean, I feel like you can find that kind of guy in the streets just about anywhere. And Andre Kasha, who's only 25, who you got from the Sharks last year's deadline, just hasn't been healthy. And when he has been healthy, you've been able to see glimpses of that skill and of that potential. And exposing someone like Andre Kasha to the Seattle Kraken, almost the same philosophy and mindset as Trent Frederick being exposed as well. So it's going to be a very difficult decision for them to make. The Bruins, I strongly believe they will go with the 7 forwards and 3 defensemen and goalie option here. Obviously, not being able to protect 4 defensemen with the 8 skater option is going to be difficult, but the Seattle Kraken can only take 1 player from them, and if they go with the defensive route, you will still have Connor Clifton, you will still have Jeremy Lauzon, you will still have Jacob Zaboral, or one of those guys still on your roster if the Kraken take a defenseman. If they take a forward, it's just going to depends on who you protect and how you value these players. Curtis Lazar would be a nice little player for them, being a tough 4th liner as well for the Kraken. Chris Wagner being a 4th line guy as well could be very attractive for them, but it also depends on the mindset, the philosophy, and the strategy that the Seattle Kraken want to go in with the expansion draft and what other players that they take throughout the draft as well. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Kraken develop and draft their team through the expansion draft and what players they take where, because if they take a couple forwards, up before you, then you're more likely to lose a defenseman, and vice versa. If they take a few defensemen before you, they're more likely to take a forward off of you. So there's so many variables in place in terms of who the Bruins should protect, who the Kraken are going to take, and what players could be lost, regardless of the players that you think or want to go. It's just going to be a completely, oh goodness, it just gives me a headache just thinking about it, to be honest. Holy smokes, it's giving me a headache just thinking about it. And before we wrap up this conversation, let's just look back at the 2017 expansion draft, where we saw the Vegas Golden Knights select Colin Miller, who's a defenseman, and he's not even with the team anymore. He's with the Islanders? Who's he with now? Sabres. Okay, yeah. I don't know why I said Islanders, but I know it was in New York somewhere. So he's not even with the Vegas Golden Knights anymore. He's with the Sabres, actually. But yes, Colin Miller, defenseman, was taken off of your roster back in 2017. And the players, obviously the roster is completely different now than it once was. These are the players that the Bruins chose to protect in that year's expansion draft. So they chose the 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and goalie option that year, protecting Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci, Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak, Riley Nash, Ryan Spooner, and David Backes. For defensemen, they chose Zdeno Chara, Torrey Krug, and Kevin Miller, obviously their goalie being Tuukka Rask. So that is who the Bruins chose to protect in that year's expansion draft. Obviously, the roster and team is completely different now than it was then. And I really do think that the Bruins will choose the 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and goalie option this year as well. I just think protecting a 4th defenseman isn't worth losing 2 forwards to protect, because you can protect a total of 10 players if you choose the 7 and 3 option, and you can only protect 8 players if you choose the 8 skater and goalie option. So is a 4th defenseman really worth protecting and losing the 2 extra forward protection slots? I don't think so. I really don't, because at the end of the day, you will still have, like I said, you will still have Connor Clifton or Jeremy Lauzon or Jacob Zaboral on your roster come next year post-expansion draft. And maybe they don't even pick one of them. But I highly believe that the Seattle Kraken will at least pick one of them. So I just don't think it's worth protecting one, exposing the other, and then losing the 2 other forwards that you could protect if you chose the 7 and 3 option. But that is going to do it for today's episode of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. Like I mentioned at the beginning, it pains me and it brings me very, very much depression and sadness and unfortunacy, knowing that today is the last Wednesday's edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. Thank you so much for downloading, listening, and enjoying every single week for today's episode slot. But effective immediately moving forward, we will only be airing on Monday and Friday for the reasons that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. So I really appreciate all the love and support from every single one of you. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you can support the decision, this tough decision that I made, and I think it's the best interest for the podcast, Murph's Boston Sports Talk. But guys, folks, ladies, girls, gentlemen, women, men, bananas, whatever you want to be, reach out to me on social media at Murphs_BostonST, where the ST stands for Sports Talk. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment down below. I want to hear your thoughts, opinions, concerns, questions, whatever it may be in regards to what we talked about today. I want to have a conversation, a debate, an argument, or simply a chatter, right? But that's going to do it for today's episode. Please download, listen, and enjoy as always on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, Amazon Music, as well as on YouTube. Please like the video if you're watching on YouTube and you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new or haven't considered subscribing yet. And also, like I mentioned, please comment down below. That is going to do it for today's Wednesday's edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. I will see you on Friday. Hopefully you enjoy the beautiful weather that we will hopefully be having, which I believe we'll be having between now and then. Let me check the weather real quick. Yeah, it's going to be mid-70s today, upper 70s tomorrow, and then a little bit of rain on Friday for Friday's episode. But between now and then, you guys know that I love you, and you know that I will always, always see you.